Yeah. So in the beginning, a small request with all the participants that you have to keep your mic muted and the videos should also be muted so that this session can be effectively monitored. Okay. So a very warm welcome to each and every one of you. And I'm very sure that you all have been eagerly waiting for these preparatory webinars that IICA is conducting for GIPCET 2020. So today we have Mr. Kapileshwar Bhalla with us. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
We welcome you for this session. To introduce Mr. Bhalla is a qualified chartered accountant and he is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He did his graduation from Delhi University, from Sri Ram College of Commerce, and he has been actively teaching students in the areas of accountancy, accounting at IPCC and final levels of chartered accountants since 1999. He has also delivered various seminars on accounting standards, IFRS, and other multiple forums to the students and industry at large. So I give this session to you, sir, to take these registered candidates forward for making them informative about the prepare for this GIPCET 2020, sir. Please, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for the nice introduction. First of all, I welcome you all, and I thank Dr. Nitishika and Dr. Rao for giving me the opportunity to have an interaction with you. And I guess we're going to start off, but I think before I start off, I have a few questions coming to my mind, and I think let me just have a little input. Before I start off, can I just have a little input from your side? How many of you from the finance background do you have any knowledge on accounting, or are you absolutely fresh on the field? So, accordingly, I can start off my inputs to you. So, just a little input in terms of are you related to finance or absolutely new to it? So, you can put your inputs on the chat. Probably you could just mention your qualification. I think that would say everything. Okay, I guess I'm getting Sudhir is a qualified CA, Zenith is a qualified CA, and I think you're more chartered accountants, I guess. Okay, Divya is chartered company secretary, Mudit is an LLB, and I think Manat is new to finance. I think we have a lot of chartered accountants. Rishabh is a BTech, and Shushant, I am new to finance, a law background. Manat is an advocate. We've got a mixed blend of people. I think Weber is a BTech, and Chandrasekhan is MBA Finance on a BCom. So we've got Syash, Bendi, lawyers, and Aditya is also an LLB. Nozer is a chartered accountant. Okay, thank you so much for the inputs. I think that was good insight for me to start off with. Well, first of all, let me, I think, begin with one particular thing. Since I think you've all from blended fields, I think I have a little onus in terms of giving you some basics of finance, as also talking something, a little technical as well. So what we're going to do, I think my initial part of my discussion is going to be very, very simple. I think for those who are chartered accountants will find it too simple to discuss. But I think for the initial part, I am concentrating on my friends who are absolutely new to the field of finance, and then gradually I will come to a little technical part as well. Well, I think before that, let me also share these slides so that you can understand what is the objective of the webinar today. You can see that I put the slide as Introduction to Financial Reporting, and I've taken that as basics as well as a schedule 3. Now, just hear me very carefully, at least for those who are new to finance. This might be new inputs to you. And then I'll also tell you, what would be my expectations in terms of how we're going to go forward in terms of this particular area. We all know that we are first of all facing a complete pandemic in terms of the entire world is facing that. And in terms of looking at the impact on the financial reporting, looking at the impact in terms of financial statements, it is, there is a huge impact. I guess we are all hearing day and night that there has been a huge impact in terms of how the financial statements would look like. I don't want to quote any numbers in terms of how many cases might be coming into for insolvency, but there is I would say a huge perception in terms of many companies would come for insolvency. I guess the numbers might not be very authentic to share with you, but of course it could run in thousands of companies going in for IBC. So I think your role as a IBC professional is going to be very massive in the coming times, especially with the current scenario world over. You're going to see your role very pertinent. And in order to discharge your duties in terms of this profession, you need to have a very good insight in terms of the legal aspects, which governs the companies, as also the accounting aspects which governs the company. So your area of expertise in terms of dealing with these situations would be understanding the financial statements. Not, I would not say that you should understand them in a great detail. You don't need to be a chartered accountant. You don't need to understand every nitty-gritties. But I think the more you know, the better it is. So understanding the various legal regulations governing the companies and the financial statements, how the things are reported in India, what are the basic nitty-gritties in terms of to be seen in terms of analysis of financial statements, that's going to be very important. They were already very important, but I think looking at the current scenario, the importance has increased many a folds. So I'm sure you all would be looking for understanding, developing a good understanding in terms of financial statements. Now, let me start off with one particular issue at the moment. Well, first of all, let me tell you that once we are looking at companies, mind the word, I'm saying a company. So when I say that I'm looking at companies, companies are governed by, the Companies Act 2013. Now, when we say that the companies are required to make their financial statements, the financial statements are made as per Schedule 3. So when we're looking at the financial statements of the company, the financial statements format, whether it's a profit and loss account or whether it's a balance sheet, in this particular case, the Schedule 3 has given us the formats in terms of making the financial statements. Now, let me tell you that in terms of Schedule 3, this goes, typically to those who are new to the field of finance. Remember, financial reporting, when I say the formats of the financial statements is given in Schedule 3. Schedule 3 is divided in a total of three parts. I would say a total of three divisions. The division one is dealing with companies which are making the financial statements which are based on accounting standards. There are certain, you can say, guidelines for a simple understanding that when a company would make its financial statements, it will do a financial reporting. There has to be certain set guidelines on the basis of which financial statements are prepared. So the companies which are following the accounting standards are required to follow the division 1, which is given in Schedule 3. Now, a question would also arise in your mind simultaneously: what are the companies which are required to follow the division 1? I'll come back to that a little later. Then there is a division 2, which is to be applied by companies which are making financial statements which are required to be prepared as per Ind AS. That's called the Indian Accounting Standards. Well, all I can say at this end is that as far as Ind AS is concerned, it is largely based on the International Accounting Standards. So we can say that Ind AS is nothing but converged IFRS. So in India, as far as all the listed companies are concerned, and even the companies, which have got subsidiaries, that means if you are a listed company, your subsidiaries, your associates and joint ventures would also be required to follow make the financial statements as per the Indian accounting standard, which is, you can say, almost like 99% based on the international accounting, what we call the international financial reporting standards. And then there is another division 3, which is given in terms of schedule 3, which talks about the preparation of financial statements for NBFCs. We know NBFCs are called the non-banking financial corporations. So don't worry, I think for those who are new to finance, I'll keep a little, I'll keep revising things also with you so that you get at least a depth in terms of the main terminology and where the things are given. So in nutshell, what I can say, what we've understood so far is that when companies, mind the word, I'm looking at companies, I'm not looking at non-companies at the moment. So when I'm looking at the companies, the format of the financial statements is given under the Companies Act 2013, which is Schedule 3. And there are a total of three divisions which are dealt with in terms of financial statement formats. One is a Division 1, which is followed by companies applying accounting standards. One is a Division 2, which is followed by companies which are required to follow the IND AS, that is called the Indian Accounting Standards. Could I request Mehul, I guess your audio might be on. If you could just mute that. So we've got the Division 2, which is also, dealing with companies which are required to make the financial statements as per Ind AS. And remember that Division 2 is applicable to companies which are listed companies and if they've got subsidiaries, associate, and joint ventures. And Division 3, as I said, is dealing in terms of NBFCs. Okay, can I just have some inputs if you've got any questions so far? Am I clear with this concept? So in nutshell, what you've learned is the format of the financial statements, where they are given, and the three divisions in terms of Schedule 3. So if you got any questions so far, please go ahead. And if you're clear with the concept, then I think I'll take you to the next stage. This was just a very basic introduction in terms of the formats of the financial statements. So can we get some inputs from you, friends? If this is clear, just give me a go ahead. Okay, I got a message for a go ahead from Zenith, Vishnu, Divya, Ekta. Thank you for the inputs. Okay, now don't worry. I guess I'm also going to take a small little test at a later stage. I'm going to ask you a few questions, not that I'm going to do the entire talking for the next 1 hour. I think we want things to be interactive as well. Okay, Shushant, could you please repeat the structure in short? Okay, I think I'll do that once again. Okay, hear me once again. When I'm looking at the companies are required to make the financial statements. I think, let me also take you a little further in terms of the slide. I think I have a slide also on that. We'll be coming to some basics also, but I'm started with this input. Just have a look at this. As I said, companies are required to make their financial statements, and in order to make the financial statements, the formats, mind the word, the formats in terms of making the financial statements is given in Schedule 3 to the Companies Act 2013. Now, the Schedule 3 to the Companies Act 2013 is divided in three divisions. You can say three parts, or you can say three divisions. Division 1 is dealing with companies which are required to make financial statements as per accounting standards. Division 2 is applicable to companies which are required to make financial statements as per IND AS, that is called Indian Accounting Standards. I know the question which must be bubbling in your mind is, what is accounting standard and what is IND AS? For the time being, you can only consider that these are the guidance which are given in terms of documented standards which guide you how the financial statements are prepared. To give you a little more inputs, accounting standards are documents which are issued by the ICAI, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and there are a total of 29 accounting standards which governs how the nitty-gritties in terms of things are accounted in the financial statements. But considering the international accounting, the ICAI has also introduced Ind AS, which is nothing but it is largely based on the concept of international accounting, what we call international financial reporting standards, and that is what we call the Ind AS. Now, we'll come into the details later, but let me tell you that companies which are required to follow Ind AS, that is Division 2, are the companies which are listed companies in India. I would not be wrong in saying, but all, mind the words, all listed companies in India. I'm saying all listed companies in India are on a mandatory basis required to make the financial statements as per Ind AS. Not only those companies which are listed, but their subsidiaries, their associates and joint ventures, every company is required to follow the formats which are given for Division 2 for making Ind AS. Now, as far as the NBFCs are concerned, the non-banking financial corporations, because they have a different kind of instruments, they're into a different kind of, you would say, different kind of business altogether. So they have got a separate formats which are given in Schedule 3, and that is Division 3. Let me also add something more to you that going forward, the Indian scenario is also going to apply these Indian accounting standards to the banking industry as well as the insurance sector. There has been quite a little delay in terms of applying these Indian accounting standard to the banking industry and the insurance sector. But I think we're anticipating that perhaps from the next year, even the normal banking industry would be applying Ind AS. Now, I'm not going to talk too much in terms of what are accounting standards, what is Ind AS, what is the difference between them. That's something which is going to take place at a later stage. Okay, I hope Sushant, you're able to catch up with me. I hope this gives you a broader structure in terms of the various divisions of Schedule 3 where the formats are making the financial statements are given. Okay, now with this inputs in hand, let me now come back to some basics with you. Understood, Nitesh? Great, wonderful indeed. So now I think let's do a simple little talking with you. Uh, you were most welcome, Sushant. Okay, now let me come back, friends, on this. I think I'll now start with a little simple discussion. Now, I would need a little more inputs from my friends who are from the non-finance background, because the things which I'm going to discuss at this stage is going to be too simple for those who are chartered accountants or company secretaries who have done MBA finance. For them, this is going to be quite a cakewalk. But I'm sure you would also give a helping hand to all those people who are new to finance. I would also request, if people from the finance background could give a little helping hand offline also to those friends who are new to the field of finance, so that they get started off with the understanding of finance. Okay, now let me come back to something what happened with me in my school. I very distinctly remember that when I passed my class 10th, at that particular stage, everybody is faced with one particular issue, that which line are you going to choose? So naturally, there are three main lines in front of you. One is you take up either science, or you take up arts, or you take commerce. So naturally, I was also faced with a common problem, that should I take up arts, or should I take up commerce or science? Now, I was a little very scared in terms of the blood side, though I was very keenly interested in doing science, but I wanted to get into the medical field. But I think, the blood side was too scary for me, so I thought I'll not take up science. And arts was not really my area of forte. It was not my area of interest, so I thought arts I should not take. So I thought, let me try my luck in terms of commerce. So I took commerce as my field in 10 plus 2 as well. So I was quite happy that I'm in a more or less in a midway. Arts is something very different. Science gets very technical. So I'm still in a midway in terms of doing commerce. So I still remember very distinctly when I had my first class in terms of commerce, and the teacher started with the definition of what is accounting. I really got a shock of my life. Now, I think the memories are absolutely getting afresh again when I'm discussing the definition of accounting with you. So I want to show you the definition in terms of what is accounting. Now, there is a definition in terms of accounting which is being given by CPA. That's the American Institute of CPA. That's what we call the Certified Public Accountant. And this definition was created a long time back in 1961. So you can imagine that it's almost been, almost 60 years. And I think I'm getting some inputs from Sumit. So thank you for taking our time for us explaining things in detail. Could you please tell us what the preparatory webinar is and what is the purpose of this? Will it be you teaching subjects of the entrance exam, or will you be giving us tips to study for the exam later on? That's a very valid question, Sumedh. I think let me first answer your inputs right away. I think that would be a concern for many of you. As I started off with the aspect that being an IB professional, you are supposed to have a lot of inputs in terms of the regulatory framework of India, and you would also be required in terms of understanding the financial reporting. Now, this preparatory webinar is in terms of giving you an insight, a walkthrough in terms of what you're going to do over a period of time in the course. So I would also be giving you some inputs in terms of what you need to do as a part of the preparatory before your regular courses starts off. So before the regular sessions would start, there is a certain expectation on the part of the institute that you would get prepared in terms of certain things. So in terms of my area, dealing in terms of financial reporting and accounting, I would give you my thought processes, that what would be my expectations from you in terms of regular sessions would start. So I guess before the regular sessions would start, there would be a certain level of preparedness with which you need to get on. So the main I would say the idea of conducting this webinar is that you are getting a feel in terms of what you need to do, because during this course of time you need to get a base formation has to be done. You need to get a little base in terms of getting a basic understanding in terms of finance. Naturally, if I start off discussing the Indian accounting standards right away, and for people who may not have any background in terms of accounting, how accounting takes place in India, that's going to be a complete challenge. And it's completely a challenge for us also, that in the limited time, is it really possible to teach you from the basics to the advanced level? Well, the answer, of course, is it's not possible to teach you everything from the basics to the advanced level. So the idea is that we also give you a little input so that you get started off with the basics, so that once the regular sessions start you are already having a base in terms of understanding a little more complex environment in terms of the regulatory framework and in terms of the accounting. I guess, Sumedh, I hope that answers your query. I think Nitish also had this particular question. Thank you, understood. And Manat, you said, is this webinar helpful for GIPCET? Well, this is, as I said, only a basic introduction to the subject to you. So where, at the end of it, I would also give you a little insight in terms of what kind of expectations, we would build in before we take you to the larger perspectives of an IB professional. Okay, so coming back, as I was discussing my inputs, that when I took commerce in 10+2, and the first class which we had, like you're also having the first class where you're trying to understand what accounting and financial reporting is all about. So the definition which is given in terms of the CPA, Certified Public Accountants, in this particular case, they formulated a definition way back in 1961. Priya sir, for GICPT, do we need to know these areas in depth? Let me, I think, reiterate one thing very clear, friends. And I think as you're going to continue with more webinars on this, I think the faculties would give you a good insight on this. As an IB professional, trust me, I am not making any overemphasis on this, but you need to be having a good knowledge in terms of the regulatory framework and the financial statements, because as a part of being an IB professional, you need to understand the financial statements. So having a understanding of the analysis of the financial statements is going to be of quite an importance. Now, since all the listed companies are making their financial statements based on the Indian accounting standards, it's going to be important for all of you to understand not only the basis of accounting, but also understanding a little more nitty-gritties in terms of accounting. So going forward, we will be exposing you to the areas of financial reporting, understanding the field of finance in terms of a little on financial management, and also understanding the field of financial reporting in terms of how the listed companies prepare their financial statements. Saurabh has got a question. So as a chartered accountant, we know most of the financial area is better to focus on other areas like economics or current affairs. Okay, I think that's a very valid question. Could I also have a little inputs from those friends who are chartered accountants? what is, do you have knowledge on the Indian accounting standards? If you were to ask to, make a financial statements or read a financial statements which is based on the Indian accounting standards, can you give me a very candid opinion in terms of what is the comfort zone on analysis of financial statements prepared as per India's? So I think let's get that input as well. I think then I'll be able to focus a little more in terms of what inputs you need to put in further on this. So could you just send some inputs on the chat, that what is your comfort zone? This goes typically to those people who are chartered accountants and company secretaries. What is your comfort zone in terms of financial statements prepared as per the Indian accounting standards? So do please send me some inputs on this. I think Adi sends me not much. And can we get some more? Because I think there are a lot of chartered accountants who have joined us on the webinar today. So I'm typically looking at that. Webs, sir, I've read them in theory, but not in practical. I'm into internal audit and process audit. Okay. So can we get some more inputs from my chartered accountant friends? I think my question was very simple and clear, that what is the comfort zone in terms of understanding the financial statements which are prepared as per India's? Vishnu tells me not much. And Shekhar, I can read an annual report and calculate certain ratios. Okay, that's wonderful indeed. Divya, due to regulatory and secretarial compliances, can read and comprehend with financial statements, helping a registered valuer in his working. That's great. Ganesh, theoretically, practically haven't worked. Nitesh, change in Schedule 3 where the assets are represented before the liability. Oh my God, that's quite a basic change indeed. Okay, I guess I've got some inputs from my fellow chartered accountants, but I think not many of the chartered accountants gave me the inputs on that. Sudhi tells me, since I am in stat audits, I have practically applied them. Trust me, friends, I think I am not scaring you, but I am just going to say something to you. For those friends who are chartered accountants as well and who have done accounting standards, and if you look at the Indian accounting standard, there is a sea change. And when I say there is a sea change, trust me, it is not just a word. I am emphasizing it's a sea change in terms of accounting which has happened in India. Understanding the financial statements which are prepared as per the Indians is going to be quite a challenging task indeed. Now, I don't believe that, you need to be an expert in the area. We are not demanding that you need to be an expert in area, because you would have to have a knowledge in terms of various things. You will need a knowledge in terms of various rules, laws, and regulations in India, along with which the financial statements. So, as an IB professional, the things which you're going to be exposed apart from the nitty-gritties of an IB professional, your initial training in terms of classroom training would concentrate on the field of finance and financial reporting, understanding the nitty-gritties involved in terms of making and analyzing these financial statements purely based on the Indian accounting standards, and also understanding the various laws and regulation. Your work cannot be discharged, you cannot be a good professional unless you would understand, at least I would say, if not an advanced level, but a basic level of understanding. So typically, the objective today is to give you some basic input, some basic introduction about the accounting which is happening in terms of India. So you get started off and you're also able to read the right kind of material on things. Now, let me divide my discussion in two parts. Since I know many of you are from the finance background, many of you are not from the finance background. Now, people who are from the finance background, I would suggest that you should start looking at financial statements and start understanding the Indian accounting standard. You should start understanding the financial statements of the listed companies from an analysis point of view. You're not going to be preparers of financial statements, mind you. You're not going to be preparers of financial statements, but you need to look at the financial statements which have already been prepared by the preparers, and you need to understand how the analysis of the financial statements is made. So going forward, of course, we'll understand the nitty-gritties in terms of how do you read a balance sheet, how do you read a P&L, how do you look at the face of the balance sheet, and how do you start making analysis. But I think the main task is now on the people who are from the science background or from the non-finance background. They've got a little more homework to do because they need to understand the basics of the finance as well, starting from understanding the journal entry. Now, for this particular purpose, today I'm going to give you some very basic inputs in terms of accounting, which I think my friends would easily, from the finance background, will find it as a cakewalk. But I think for those who are from the non-finance background, are going to definitely get a basics on that. So the focus right now is to make you run through on the basic finance, but going forward, you need to have I would say, a fairly good understanding of analysis of the financial statements. Shubham has got a question. So, understanding a financial statement is analyzing the actual position of the company. By knowing the accounting base of index, we should actually position ourselves as what actually company has done. Maybe earlier we had a historic cost, but now we've got index with a fair value. So proper knowledge of the index is must. Undoubtedly, yes. Because what I have seen over a period of time as a trainer as well, I have generally seen that people don't have much, knowledge in terms of index. So it is important. I'm not saying that you become an expert on the area, but there are certain areas like, for example, if you look at a lease transaction in a practical life, you need to understand the basics of how the lease accounting is done in India. You're looking at mergers and acquisitions which have taken place. Now we can see that, quite off late, I think yesterday you heard that 9.99% has been acquired by Facebook in Reliance Geo. So we need to understand the nitty-gritties in terms of mergers and acquisitions. So what kind of regulatory, what kind of accounting formats are given in terms of the Indian context? This is what we need to understand. Navneet has got another question. So sorry to interrupt, but we will only be looking at finance this session. Also, are we expecting different sessions for other subjects for the entrance like law, GK, logistics, etc.? Yes, I guess, of course, yes. There would be separate sessions on that, I guess. My area, of course, is giving you an insight on the concept of accounting and the financial reporting. Okay, I hope that gives a little good insight in terms of things. Now, let me start concentrating on the basis of accounting, basics of accounting with you. Though I think everybody is free to answer, but I would prefer for people from the non-finance background could give me an answer so that they get started off with the basics on this. So, as I was, telling you my experience in terms of accounting when I entered the 10 plus 2 class 11th, and we were given the definition of accounting. See, I got a complete shock of my life at that stage. I hope the slide is quite visible to you. And in this particular case, the very first portion of the definition said accounting is an art. Can you look at the word accounting is an art? Oh my God, it takes me back to the memory lane. I stood up in the class at that day itself and I asked my teacher that, ma'am, I have taken commerce. Not exactly visible. Okay, no worry. I think Nitesh, the first box which is written is accounting is an art. So I asked the teacher, ma'am, I have not taken science, neither have taken arts. I have taken commerce, and today you're telling me that accounting is also an art. I'm not able to reconcile that I have taken, commerce or I have taken art. Trust me, friends. Trust me. When I'm looking at the entire field of finance, I'm using the larger word finance. I'm not using the word accounting. Finance is a much larger term compared to accounting. Trust me, there is a lot of things which are subjective in nature. If you're thinking that accounting is also something like science where 2 plus 2 is going to be 4, let me tell you, it is not true. In the accounting world also there is a huge level of subjectivity, which is there in terms of accounting. Now, I guess when you're looking in terms of, I'll give you a very simple little example. Let's get some inputs from all of you. This goes a common question to all of you. Let's say, for example, a company has prepared, let's say, a plant and machinery during the period of COVID, immediately before the period of COVID, before the lockdown happened. You need to give me a very careful answer. Please hear my question very carefully. So let's say the company acquired a plant and machinery, immediately before the lockdown period. And in this particular case, the machinery has not been used for this financial year. I'm standing on 31st, I'm already standing in April. The machinery was acquired in January. Not even a single unit was produced out of that machinery. I got this machinery at a cost of, let's say, 25 lakh rupee. Mind my question. I got this machine for worth 25 lakhs in the company, and it has not been used to produce even a single unit of production because of the lockdown period. Now, my question to you, friends, give your inputs. If I am supposed to show this plant and machinery in my balance sheet as an asset, do you think I'll show it at the cost of 25 lakhs, or do you think some extra considerations would apply? Well, you can go ahead with your inputs. I'm very eagerly awaiting for your inputs on that. So the company made a bought that machinery for 25 lakhs. Not even a single unit has been, produced out of that. And Nitesh tells me, sir, if it has been put to use, then costless depreciation. I could not put it to use. The machinery has been lying in my godown, lying in my factory premises as it is. Okay, Noza tells me depreciation is to be considered. Suresh tells me depreciation will still be applicable. And Vishnu tells me even though not used, it is still an asset. And Zina tells me depreciation will still be there. And Nitish says no depreciation. Deva tells me irrespective depreciation applicable. Saurabh tells me it will be shown at cost. And Subhi tells me you have to provide depreciation. Now, let me tell you something very interesting indeed, friends. One particular thought process which I think nobody is touched upon, which I am going to touch upon, and that's where you're going to realize that accounting is an art. There is a requirement in terms of both accounting standards and in terms of Indian accounting standards that I would also make a review in terms of impairment testing of this machinery. Now you would say impairment testing. So what do you mean by impairment testing of the machinery? Well, in simple words, you can only say that for those who are new to the concept of impairment, you need to basically see that can you recover 25 lakhs from this machinery or not? Because when you bought this machinery, the management had a certain anticipated plan of action. They had a certain anticipated production plan on the basis of which, the cash flows will be generated. Now, you need to make an assessment that do you think that recoverability is still an issue or not? Now, let me ask you, friends. Now, this might be very subjective, as my friend Nitesh says, no, sir. I think that's a very bold statement of saying a no, but I think let me still ask you, do you feel, and I'm not saying it could be a mixed blend of yes and no, I'm saying, do you agree it is a subjective assessment? Do you think companies, managements would need to make an evaluation whether we can actually recover 25 lakhs from the machinery? Do we need to take a call and record this machinery at a lesser value, considering that the recoverability of this machinery may not be 25 lakhs? What do you say? I'm not saying a yes or no. I want to understand, do you feel that there is a subjectivity depending upon the facts and circumstances of the case? Let's get the inputs from you. I think my friend Sudhir agrees. Yes, impairment needs to be tested. Nitesh, yes, they need to make an evaluation. Saurav also tells me thinking testing would be done at the end year only. So I think, yes, that's where you realize that accounting is certainly an art. I think Rustam also tells me, yes, it is indeed subjective. So when you're looking at a scenario when a company comes in for, in insolvency, then you may not be able to give them the right kind of, a scheme of survival or coming out of that, or, suggesting giving them a very good piece of advice unless we are able to understand. So my entire idea of giving you this example is to expose you that accounting and finance is going to be a very relevant area for you. You don't need to be an expert, but you need to understand the terminology. You need to understand at least some basic parts of how the financial statements are made. What are the various aspects which governs the preparation of the financial statements? Okay, I guess Shushan tells me, so can I say calculation of company derives us for depreciation or not? Well, depreciation in any case would be charged on this machinery irrespective. But apart from the depreciation, I would also look in for impairment testing of this machine as well. Zenith says that this is assuming we are recording the basis of revaluation, and if it is temporary, we do have to be subjective, and judgment needs to be applied. Absolutely, judgment is going to be a very pertinent area, and judgment, as I always say, depends upon the professional expertise one develops over a period of time, and the professional expertise means that you need to be having a good knowledge on the aspects as well. Shashank sir, it comes out subjective as it depends upon other things as well. Of course, yes. There is nothing which I can say a yes or a no. There is something which I need to evaluate, and evaluation means it is not that 2 plus 2 is 4. So when you need to make evaluations where things are subjective, it means it is certainly an art. So even when you're looking at the fair valuation, as one of my friends earlier said, that Indies is also considering a lot of fair valuations. Fair valuations would also mean that you would get certificates from the valuers. And we already know that valuation is now becoming a very great field as well. There have been some valuation standards which have been developed. There is a valuation bill also which is going on across the corners. And understanding, the aspects in terms of valuation is also going to be important. So as IB professionals, you would get exposed largely in terms of not only the financial reporting, the valuation aspects, the position under the regulatory framework, the legal provisions, everything. So getting an oversight, getting an overview in terms of things. Now, let me now come a little further, friends, and I think let me scale down my discussion to a little lower level at this stage. When I say accounting is an art, but at the same time, accounting follows a particular sequence. Mind the words, accounting follows a particular sequence. After this discussion, I will tell you my expectation of things. What am I expecting, before you go in for the regular sessions, what is my expectations in terms of things? Now, at the first instance, as I said, accounting is an art, it is subjective, but it follows a clear-cut sequence. And please wait for a test also, which is going to come at the end. It will also give me an assessment in terms of how much you've understood out of this webinar. So, as I said, accounting certainly follows a particular sequence as well. Every company, when it makes its financial statements, it follows a particular sequence. Number one, it first of all, makes a journal. After it records a journal, then it makes a ledger. Once it makes a ledger, then it makes a trial balance, and that trial balance becomes a basis for the preparation of the financial statements of the company. So we journalize a transaction in the form of a journal, then it is posted in a ledger, and then we make a trial balance, and that becomes the basis of making the financial statements. Now, as a part of the basic understanding, I would request all my friends who are from the non-finance background to get some good understanding on how journal entries are drafted, how ledgers are made, and how a trial balance is prepared. Because our scope of discussion would be simply in terms of, the financial statements which are prepared as per Schedule 3. But I'll give you a very quick view in terms of, the basics of accounting as well. So what I've done in the slide as well, as a basic understanding, we have divided that all the accounts are segregated into three. Whenever you face a transaction in a practical life, there are three types of accounts. One is called a personal account, one is called a real account, and one is called a nominal account. I think somebody's audio is on. Could I just request to please mute your audio? Maybe I think Zenith, I think your audio might be on. So could you please mute your audio, please? Okay. So as we said that there are a total of three kinds of accounts. One is called a personal account, one is called a real account, and a nominal account. Like for example, any account which relates to a person. I said any account which relates to a person is called a personal account, and anything which is tangible in nature, anything which is tangible like a building, a machinery, let's say you're talking about cash in hand, or anything which you can see, anything which you can touch, is supposed to be a real account, and anything which relates to incomes and expenses are supposed to be nominal accounts. So what are you going to do? I'm going to give you a quick example. So what we understood, Anything which is related to a person is a personal account. Anything which is tangible, which you can, intangible also, tangible, intangible, which you can see, which you can touch, which you can feel, but provided of course it's an asset, is a real account. And any incomes and expense would be a nominal account. Okay, let's take a journey. Let's give you some questions, try them and decide, is it nominal, real, person? Remember, if it is income and expense, it's nominal. If it is related to asset, tangible, intangible, it's real. And if it is related to a person, then it is a personal account. Okay, let's begin the journey. Salary. Now, if I say salary, can we get some inputs? I would prefer if we get some answers more from the people on the non-finance background. So that's wonderful. That's right, Suresh. Absolutely correct. I think we've got wonderful inputs on that. It's undoubtedly a nominal account. Great. Okay, let's say we're looking at, let's say, patent. I'm looking at a patent. So what do you say? It's a real, nominal, or a personal account? Wonderful. I think we've got some good inputs at that. It's a real account because it's intangible in nature, but it's an intangible asset. It is certainly a real account. I'm afraid, Shaker, not a nominal account. It's a real account in nature. Okay, let's say I have a customer who owes me money, whom I call a debtor. I have a customer who owes me money and he is basically called a debtor, and that's absolutely correct. It's a personal account. Now, I think some of you are giving it's a real account. It's not a real account, it's a personal account. Okay, now a tricky question to you. A tricky question, friends, to you. Let's say I said salary. Now I'm saying it's outstanding salary. That means it is due to someone, but it is not yet paid. It is due to someone but not yet paid. Vishnu, you said, so why it's not real in nature? A debtor is relating to a person, therefore it is a personal account. Okay, now I think we're getting some mixed answers on that. On outstanding salary, somebody is saying it's a real account, somebody is saying it's a personal account, somebody is saying it's a nominal account. Okay, let me also tell you that this is one of the questions which also came in the Indian Administrative Service examinations as well. Now, for those who are from the finance background also, I think I'm getting some, very interesting outputs from them. Now, let me give you something very interesting. Now hear this very carefully, if I prefix the word outstanding, prepaid, or advance to any nominal account. I repeat, if I prefix the word advance, prepaid, or outstanding to any nominal account, it is a personal account. Reason, when I say it's an outstanding salary, it means it is due to a particular person. You're getting my point. So when I say salary, it is an expense. It's a nominal account. But when I say it's an outstanding salary, it is supposed to be due to a particular person. Okay, let's try another one and try your luck. If I say it's a prepaid insurance, if I say it is a prepaid insurance, can you take a call? It's a real person on a nominal account. Mind the word prepaid insurance. Okay, Nikhil, you still said it's a nominal account. I think I gave you the input. If you prefix the word prepaid, advance, or outstanding to any nominal account, insurance premium which you're going to pay is the nominal account. But if you've got a prepaid insurance, yes, it becomes a personal account in nature. Well, I think we can go on and on and on this kind, and we can keep discussing examples in terms of what are the various example in terms of things. But I think for those who are from the non-finance background would need to work upon this more. The idea today is only to give you a little basic exposure in terms of accounting. Okay, let me ask you another question which is not on my slide, but I think for those who are from the finance background, let's test your knowledge on the basics as well. Okay, Shashank says, so could you explain how insurance comes under a personal account? Well, when you say it's a prepaid insurance, the money is being paid in advance to a person. Now you would say, sir, insurance company is not a person. The person out here need not be a natural human being. When I say it relates to a person, it can be an artificial legal person as well. So even a company can be considered as a person in nature. So when you say person, it could be a real human being or it could be an artificial human being. We all know, even as per the Companies Act, companies are always considered to be an artificial legal person. And if they're treated as artificial legal person, insurance company in this case will be considered to be a person in nature. So if you prepaid the amount in advance to the insurance company, it is being paid in advance to a person, it relates to the person, therefore it becomes a personal account. I hope that answers, Shishant, your query as well. Okay, Zenith said, sir, identification of a beneficiary being a CP for the classification. I really didn't get this in terms of what is the context of this. Could you just give a little more input, Zenith, on that? And Shashant, if it is not paid in advance, let's say if you say that there is an insurance premium which is paid for the current year, it's an expense. So if you say it's a pure insurance premium paid, then it certainly becomes an expense, right? I guess that answers, Shashant, your question. Okay, that's great. Now, let me also give you some more inputs on that. You know, let me first of all ask you, do you know who developed the field of accounting? What was the name of the person who developed accounting? I think for those who are chartered accountants, I guess must be having a good knowledge on that. Let's get some inputs from you. Can you tell me, friends, who was called the father of accounting? Who developed the field of accounting. He was called the father of accounting. Anybody remembers who was the name of the person who was the father of accounting? I hope you're not doing a Google search on that. So perhaps you must be thinking that it's the easiest way to answer is to make a Google search immediately and get the answer. Let's say you do as fast. The Google does it first, or you do it first. So who was the father of accounting who developed the subject of accounting? Decided that there are three kinds of accounting and other things. And that's right. So there, absolutely, it was Luca Piccoli. That is absolutely correct. He was the father of accounting. Let me just also tell you something very interesting. I hope this was not a Google search, and I think it authentically came from all of you. Now, if I go back to the era in terms of accounting, Luca, when he made this accounting book, it was a barely 100-page book on accounting. And guess what? Today, when we're looking at the Indian accounting standard, which governs the accounting of financial statements in India, can you make a wild guess in terms of number of pages the Indian accounting standards are running in? It's running in almost around, more than almost around a 1,500 pages document. It's like almost 1,500 pages of documents in terms of the accounting. Accounting has become so complicated in a practical life scenario. In order to understand and make a basic analysis of financial statements also, one's need to get those grips as well. Okay, now there were certain golden rules of accounting which was developed by the father of accounting, and he said that what you debit and credit depends upon whether it's a personal, real, or a nominal account. So when he gave rules like, for a personal account, debit the receiver and credit the giver, a real account like debit comes in and credit what goes out, and a nominal accounts debit all expenses and credit all gains. Now it's going to be a difficult task for those people who are from the non-finance background to basically teach you the art of journalizing at this point of time. But let me give you some very basic inputs. So I want now answers coming in from my friends who are from the non-finance background. Now, the question goes, look at the slide carefully and decide. My company paid a salary. Please mind the words. My company paid a salary. It is undoubtedly a nominal account. So now you need to decide, will the company debit or give a credit to this? My company paid a salary, and the salary, which is an expense, is a nominal account. And that's right, Harsh, you said it'll be a credit. The salary, I'm afraid not. Being an expense, the rule is debit all expenses. So when I say debit all expenses, it is going to be a debit. Great. Okay, my company purchased a building. My company purchased a building, and building, I guess, is supposed to be real account. Now you need to put across a question: is the building coming in or the building going out? So when you purchase a building, is the building coming in? It says debit what comes in and credit what goes out, and that's right, Divya, it's not going to be a credit, it's going to be a debit. because debit what comes in and credit what goes out. So when you purchase a building, then you can say debit what comes in. Okay, so this is the kind of basic accounting which has been developed. Well, as I said, the idea, of course, is not to. The idea, of course, is not to make you any experts on this field of accounting. The idea is basically to give you a basic overview itself. Okay, let's test a very basic knowledge. Now, look at this slide, and I want your small little test, and then I'm going to ask you a few questions offhand. Can you look at on the slide that there are four items which are given? One is a furniture and equipment, one is a stock of material, one is a building, and one is a machinery. Which one do you think is the odd one out? Which you think is not falling in the logic of trades? I think getting mixed answers, somebody is saying A, somebody is saying B. I think, but of course, the majority answer is coming in terms of B, and that is absolutely correct. Well, if you look at point A, C, and D, they're all items which are non-current in nature. And if you look at the item number B, it is something which is a current in nature, short-term in nature. But ACD are long-term in nature. So considering which is the odd one out, that we can say B is supposed to be the odd one out. Okay. Now, friends, I have a small little question, friends, to you. I guess what I want to do now at this stage is, let me, I think, close the slide. I want to take a small little test. Okay, are you ready for the test, friends? Can I take a small little test now? Can I take a small little test? Okay, now we're going to ask you a few questions, and depending on that, I think we're going to take a call how good or the understanding has been on this session. Okay, let's begin the journey. I am expecting a good level of answers coming from you. So my name, as it is Kapileshwar Bhalla, and sometimes I call it as a KBC as well, just to be, call it. So we're going to play KBC. Let's see the fastest fingers first. So I'm going to name only the person who answers the question first. Now, please don't answer it before the question goes on, right? So let's see who's going to act fast on this. Based on whatever we've discussed so far, I'm going to ask you a few questions now. Can you please tell me how many divisions are there in Schedule 3 which governs the financial statements? Superb. I think Shekhar got the first answer. Wonderful indeed. You steal the show. Okay, that's great. In the we've got good number of answers and everybody is correct, but as I said, I'm going to announce the name of the person who answers it first. Great. Next question. NBFCs is supposed to apply which division? Wonderful. I think we got the answer. Vishnu was the first one to answer on that. That's wonderful indeed. Superb. Though I think many answers absolutely correct. Next question. Listed units, give me true and false. Listed companies. No, I'm not talking about the division now. My question is not complete. Listed companies are supposed to apply division 1. Listed companies are supposed to apply division 1. Shekhar, I think, took the answer absolutely correct. It is a false statement because listed companies are required to apply the Indian accounting standard. That's superb indeed. Okay, next one. When I am looking at the financial statements, it is subjective indeed, but there is a certain sequence in terms of making financial statements. Can you tell me, before the balance, how many things need to be prepared before the trial balance? And that's right, Vishnu. I think that's again still stored in the show. 3, that's journal followed by a ledger. Sorry, I'm afraid it's 2. I said before the trial balance, so I think the answer was 2, not 3. It's journal and then it's a ledger, and it is supposed to be a trial balance. That's wonderful indeed. Okay, now the next question which goes to you. Can you tell me how many types of accounts are there? What are the types of accounts? Wonderful. I think Vishnu again took the seal. I think he's really, put his hands on the keyboard and is trying to score the best. That's wonderful. There are 3. Now, the last question to you, friends. Be careful. I'm going to give you the rule and you will tell me this rule is applicable to which particular account. Debit what comes in, credit what goes out. Wonderful. Divya, I think took the answer for real account in nature. That's wonderful indeed. So I think I'm really happy with the kind of interaction and the kind of spontaneous response I think all of you have given me. That's really wonderful indeed. I've already covered that schedule 3 to you. So this was a very basic introduction, friends, to you or today. It was just a very basic discussion with you, just giving you a very basic overview in terms of things. So my expectations now, before you can ask your questions on this, I want you friends to do a little homework in terms of understanding how the journal entries are made, how the ledger postings are done, how the trial balance and the basic financial statements are done. My job, of course, would be to giving you some more nitty-gritties in terms of understanding these Indian accounting standards, in terms of making more analysis of the financial statements. So over to you, friends, for any questions on your side. You can ask me what are concerns, any questions on the subject. So please go ahead. Saurabh, will we get lectures on other topics as well? I'm sure you're going to get some more preparatory webinars on that, of course. So any further questions on that, friends? Okay, Nitesh, any notes from these would come in the exams? Well, I didn't say much on that. I think that you can coordinate with the institute. Ishan, sir, if you please suggest some sources, book list for that. I think for understanding the basis of accounting, you could refer a class 11th accounting book as well. Harsh, could you please show the slide on the golden rules? I'll do that. And Manat sir, how should we prepare for financial aptitude? Well, in terms of making this, I think a basic knowledge on the accounting would be good enough in terms of understanding financial aptitude, understand the basic of accounting as I gave you inputs in terms of the various governing rules, etc. Well, I think, Sesh, I think I may not be able to give you much inputs on that. So could you please give us a little insight on the type of questions which could be asked in the financial aptitude? I guess there might be some sample paper also, to my knowledge, which you could get from the institute, and that would give you a little more insight in terms of what kind of examination questions could be asked on this. Sort about the lectures, enough for the exam. I would say this is a very basic preparatory webinar. So I would not say that this could be the only input which would be important. Rishabh, thank you, sir. Some great insights on this. Can you help us with examples to understand the types of accounts? Well, I think we can maybe have some more webinars on this, giving you some more inputs on this. Today was a very journal introductory webinar on this, so I think we'll going ahead. Maybe we can add on some more inputs to you. Divya, in financial aptitude syllabus for GIP, we are expecting to prepare importance of finance, financial markets, valuations, but not covered, but mention accounting. Confusing what to cover. Well, as I said, it would be great if you could look at a sample paper also in this particular regard. Sumit, so just missed the part where you had a question on the odd one out. Could you explain that once again? Well, on the odd one out, I was just trying to give you a focus that out of these 4 items, you could see that A, C, D are long-term in nature, what we technically call non-current in nature. And in terms of B, it's short-term, it's called current asset in nature. Shekhar, how to learn more about Indies? Well, I think for the initial examination, I think getting into too much intricacies about Indies may not be too relevant. But I think having some basic knowledge in terms of things, having a fair idea on what are the divisions governing the preparation of financial statements, these things would be good enough. Ishan, more webinars would be really helpful. That's great. Aditya, sir, will the exam date be 10th May or it has been postponed due to COVID? Well, yes, I'm not much aware regarding any postponement so far. I think Gitanjali ma'am would be able to give you more inputs on that. I think Priya, I think Gitanjali ma'am would be able to guide you much on that. I think I'll just probably, I think, ask her to give you some inputs on that. Manat sir, can you please explain valuation in the next webinar on this topic? Okay, I think suggestions taken. And Ekta, where we could study the finance subject, well, I think finance is one area where you would need some inputs on accounting as well as on the financial markets, getting a little knowledge on what is the stock market, a little input. So there may not be one complete book, but I think picking up any good book on competitive examinations would give you some very basic insights on this. And I think we got the input. Gitanjali ma'am is saying the test is, of course, on the 10th of May itself. So, when Gitanjali ma'am, could you please suggest the organizers of the exam to create a WhatsApp group for all the applicants? I think that's also a good suggestion. I think ma'am would have taken a note on that. I guess that almost answers quite a lot of questions, I guess. Sort of my suggestion for sample MCQ, except the IICA website. Okay, I think suggestions noted on that as well. Okay, I guess my inputs are done on that. And it was really interesting to have a wonderful interaction with you all the participants. I think it's really delightful. Hope to catch you again later on this. And I guess suggestions are well taken. So I think it's just the beginning, and things will definitely be taken further. Rustam, thank you for your time. Thank you so much, friends. It's been really a good and a wonderful interaction with all of you. I really thank ISEA, Dr. Nitishikha, Dr. Rao, in terms of giving me this wonderful opportunity to, interact with such a wonderful audience out here. And my thanks to Gitanjali ma'am also for the good efforts put in for organizing this as well. Thank you so much all. I guess request Gitanjali ma'am if she would like to take the mic and say something.
Yeah, I would like to thank you, sir, for sparing your valuable time and giving these students an insight on how to prepare for GIPCET. And as I could see all their comments coming up for more webinars and all. So I would like to say that all of you should look into the GIPCET syllabus and the sample question paper that is available on the website. And the syllabus that would be covered for GIPCET is there. So we are planning for two more webinars in this week, and the information for the same will be announced to you through your on your emails. And I thank Kapileshwar Balla sir for his time and putting all the efforts to make you all understand about how to go for the preparations regarding GIPSET. So thank you, sir, and
Thank,
thank you to all the candidates. Thank you very
thank,
much.
thank you so much, ma'am.
Ma'am, when will our admit cards be issued?
Yeah, dear candidates, all the queries will be taken up on the email. As you know, there was an email given in the beginning, gip@isca.in. So you can put your queries on that. So as of now, I request you to stay connected with us for the future webinars. Thank you so much.